Jonesy, you look like you're in getting yourself a sort of a lovely cappuccino for the morning. Is that what you're up to?
Not yet. I've come back to school, so I'm in my usual location in terms of
Oh, are you?
on school. Yeah, I've come into the common room because I've dropped my youngest Tommy off to play warm up to warm up for his rugby match, which is in about 40 minutes. So I thought, let's try a new environment with everything that's gone on after the match. Things are changing, so I thought I'd better match it.
Well, you're going to need a comfy seat, I think, for all the stuff we're going to go through today. Obviously, Australia win by 4 wickets, right? That's fine. And in fact, when we spoke earlier in the morning, this was just going to be me doing a talking heads or just a camera whilst you were walking the dog and stuff, because there was actually nothing to talk about that would have been vaguely interesting for any of our viewers and listeners. And then the post-match stuff happened with Baz McCullum and Ben Stokes coming out and actually showing a bit of humility and giving all us poor English cricket fans a sign that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's what we've been asking for, isn't it? What people have been calling out for is to have a look at yourselves and be honest with us. And that's what came out of it. So that, listening to Ben Stokes chatting to Jonathan Agnew on the radio afterwards. And it was the first time that he's actually sort of put it back to his team and said, you're not good enough. And so I wouldn't like to be in that dressing room, whether or not it's done tonight or in a location in Neser where they're going off to for their mini break after this test match. But there's going to be some serious questions. And Ben Stokes, to me, looks like a man that when he has I'm not going to say a bee in his bonnet, but when he wants answers, he's going to go and get them. And so there could be some very difficult conversations, some very difficult questions posed to individuals about performances.
Talking of difficult questions, here's my first one for the morning. Do you think Ben Stokes, deep down, doesn't want his captaincy and legacy to be tainted by what's gone on in these first 2 test matches? And that's psychologically and underlying all of that, that's the reason why this has come out now.
I think
it's early in the morning, but
Yeah, no. I think that's the same for any leader. Where anyone at the top, it's about, it does come back to you. And, Ben Stokes and Brendon McCullum have come up with this plan, this method. And
and Rob Key as well.
Yeah, Rob Key's backed it with appointments, absolutely. And so this is now, personally, your method is being scrutinised to probably a depth that hasn't been done before. And so Ben Stokes is reflective and looked at it and gone, you know what, they're right. We've backed what we've doing for a long time. And he mentioned that the skill aspect, there's no questions about that. And I 100% agree with him. There's no questions about the skill factor of these guys. The issue is now the decision-making. And at test match cricket, that's what it comes down to is, you can have all the skill, but are you up for it? What's your decision-making? Because he's now seen too many wrong decisions being made too often.
Isn't it interesting? In less than 24 hours after Marcus Trescothick's defence of their planning processes, systems and mentality yesterday in the end of day presser, you've got McCullum and Stokes now coming out and saying, actually, we need to change. Was that planned?
No, but I think maybe the backlash of it, because that, again, do
you think that surprised them, the ferocity of it?
I think it may be. Listen, let's open their eyes, because we talked about being in that group, being in that environment, holding that party line, and it's got. Hang on a minute, look at what that's getting us. We need some support here. We're on foreign soil. We've got tens of thousands of supporters come out here to watch us. They're not happy with us. It's very clear that I imagine that around the place, leaving the ground, they're going to hear that support and the negativity around it. They're going to, on radio out there, potentially, if they're looking at social media, their media guy maybe briefing them to say, listen, and it could, who knows, it could have come from someone like that. They have a media guy traveling with them, and that person's job is to go, listen, guys, this isn't going about the right way. And then the beauty of a day-night test match, much like I spoke about, chance for players to rejuvenate themselves because they're not starting until 2. But maybe this morning, before the match, before the start of play, they've gone and got together and gone, listen, we need to change what we're doing. With over a cappuccino, whatever it is, this has to change. This is changing now.
Do you think, you said, it's opened their eyes to things. I mean, this isn't a new thing. Do you think actually? So what are they? If my memory's right, there was an Ashes series it was 2-2 when actually England came down from 2-0 at home, and then there was the India series last year again. Where they played the way they played. In between that, there's been tours to Pakistan and stuff. So do you think actually it's the first time they've been under that level of scrutiny? Because at home it's a bit sort of whitewashed in terms of everyone loves England, or it's home, crowds are full, all that sort of thing. But actually at home, when they go to Australia where the scrutiny is on them so much, their eyes have been opened because of that pressure that they're under.
Yeah, quite a bit. And also it's been back-to-back performances in terms of with this side and their method has, I'm not up to date. I should know better, but I'll admit that, off the back end of last summer, it's, this Ashes series has captivated me. I've watched more cricket than I probably have in recent time, back to back. And so then that would be, someone who knows their stuff to be able to tell me, actually, no, this happened in this series. Back in the summer, 2 summers.
Yeah, that isn't me.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of us. We're actually pretty clueless. We're just no.
It's just bluff your way through 45 minutes.
Absolutely. But that's what struck me for this. This is back-to-back performances, and has that happened to this side before? And actually, it's not back-to-back. It's 3 performances. Last test at the Oval, then these first 2, and so it's been a 3-test build-up, which is basically a series. So, so that's probably what's happened more than what's happened before. Before we've bounced back, we've had a stinker, and then we've come back and we've shown what it's about. So people have gone, okay, all right, maybe that was a blip. This is more than a blip. This is repetition.
This England side's like a naughty child who does, messes about and then only adapts their behaviour after they get a telling off. And it seems to be the constant thing. They play, the naughty child does his or her thing. England play the way they play, go 2-0 down. Mum, i.e. Ben Stokes, or dad, as in Baz McCullum, or whatever that analogy, wherever that's going, come in and give them a ticking off, and then they knuckle down and behave themselves. You look at Jofra Archer today. Clearly, see, if I was a fly on the wall of that dressing room, Stokes has come in after getting out, and him and Jacks played brilliantly, nearly 100-run stand, showing everybody what should be done. And that's happened before with Ben Stokes. He's led the way numerous times. He's gone into the changing room, given them what for. Jofra's come out and bowled rockets, and he's in Steve Smith's face and leading Steve Smith to say something like, you only bowl fast when it doesn't matter, or something, right? So clearly something has gone on. But why didn't that happen from the very outset, from the moment they land in Australia, really get that intensity up? Or do they need to get into this sort of situation, like the naughty child who needs time out or sent to their room, whatever you do in modern time parenting? Probably need to delete that bit out. And why can't it happen at the outset?
I used a similar analogy after the first test. As a parent, we're currently disappointed. We still love the England cricket team, but we're currently disappointed. But that disappointment's been backed up again. So
we're in detention territory. Yeah,
exactly. But I think, going to what you're saying there, potentially about Jofra, I think they did start that. You think of the way that they bowled brilliantly in that first test. They
first innings of the first test.
But what they couldn't now, but almost, they haven't been able to back it up. There was talk of And this is where it comes down to, have Australia been genius with their tactics, with the way that they've done it, compared to, so we've come over, we've said pace, that we're going to blast them out. Okay.
Sure.
Correct. Yeah. But from growing up in Australia, it's not a tactic that people go to a lot. The tactic is that you are relentless. Even, that's the way I
Look at
grew
the
up.
great Aussie bowlers.
Yeah. And what Australia did was mix it in with they had one quickie, which is what we've done a few years ago with Mark Wood, or when Jofra was out. Mark Wood was our spear in terms of short, quick pace, ruffle them up. Where this time we've gone, let's have a whole attack like that. Australia have got Stark who bowls their 140, and around that, much like they did when I played, when Brett Lee was the rocket bowler, and around that they had Casper, they had Glenn McGrath, they had
Jason
Dizzy Gillespie. These were guys who were relentless on their line of length and didn't let you get away. And then around that, you sprinkled it with a bit of magic dust of someone who could make something happen. We've tried to throw a whole cloud of magic dust and, bounce and terrorize them out. And as Steve Smith's got there, he doesn't care. Or ramp you, bowl, you bowl quick as you like, me.
Well, that's the thing also, shots have changed, in recent times with the ramp and stuff and you've said before, they don't care about pace particularly. But if you go back, this is reminiscent of, and I don't know what year it was, that year that we sent the Harlem Globetrotters down to Australia with Boyd Rankin and Chris Tremlett, and I think Steve Finn might have been there, with the whole intention of raw pace, aggression, bouncing them out. That didn't work either, but yet we know we haven't learned. So then that leads us to the discussion around changes to the side. The top 7 are going to get a rocket, and I think I think on this podcast we can say, whilst TMS couldn't necessarily say who they thought they were going to be, I think Pope, Brooke, Crawley, Duckett are going to get, actually Smith, pretty much everybody's going to get something from Ben Stokes about their mentality. Because he did say, and I think you said just earlier, skill isn't in question, but mentality is. Yeah. But the bowlers also, who I've said to you before on this pod, that have got away with it to an extent because the batters have been as they have been, and they're deflecting the attention away from a poor bowling performance. And for me, that means players like Matthew Potts come into play in the second test. Do you see wholesale changes to this England side for Adelaide?
I don't think massively wholesale. I think you'll see one, maybe 2. And I think it'll be around the sort of the style that they play. And just to go back with our bowlers, I was really excited about them. Because I thought actually I was really excited about it. But then as it's gone on, it sort of dawned on me that, well, actually, the bowlers we've picked aren't bowlers to back it up day after day. We're going to have a spell. Jofra raced in today and probably touched 150. Mark Wood and the boys did it at Perth. But then what's being shown is that their fragility isn't the ability to back it up. Second innings, there's 10 Ks down, where 140s around that sort of pace. And that's a big difference to those guys. And so that's where Australia, Michael Neser, brilliant selection. And what does he do? He charges in. He's bullish. He's a bit like a Matthew Potts. I was really excited by Matthew Potts a number of years ago because he did what Neser did. A bit like what Atkinson sort of does to a level. And so for me, that's something that we need to look at now. Hang on a minute. This all-out quick attack, they can't back it up for a test match. One innings to the next. It's too much for them physically. Jofra hardly bowled in the last 3 years. You've seen Mark Wood's out, and the fact that they've gone from, and it comes back to preparation. They've gone from not doing a whole lot of preparation to being in under huge sort of pressure, scrutiny, having to back it up. The team's gone and got 500 against you. Okay, out you go again. And so on the back of that, that's maybe something they look at. I think Mark Wood's still got a brace on his knee. So I don't think he's in the frame for it. But it's whether or not we bring we rest Jofra, but then he's shown a bit of light, but there's something, just that balance. How do we get our balance better? Because Australia have got their balance correct beautifully. Both they're the home team. They should know what to do. We've gone out there with a method, sort of locked into it, and unfortunately, it hasn't worked.
If you go with that, talking about balance, if you go with, a top six, they're predominantly batters with one all-rounder, the Ben Stokes at 6, the keeper at 7 and 4 bowlers, let's say 3 quicks and a spinner. That's the sort of standard sort of setup. Yeah, and it's overloaded because you got actually the one person who came out of this with any credit is actually Will Jacks. Fielded well, took that great catch, probably didn't bowl enough, but got runs. And he's the one that actually, right, and I said this to you yesterday, is either number 3 that England go to. And you didn't think so. Michael Vaughan said on TMS that he's always thought that Ben Stokes should be number 3. I think that's too much pressure on Stokes already as a captain. Vaughan, all right, fine. He didn't bowl, so we bowled some filth, but he didn't bowl really. And so it didn't matter to him as much as Ben Stokes where the pressure's on him. So England have backed themselves into a corner with the squad that they've selected because, and again, without sounding like I know everything, I said to you a couple of pods ago that there's no pressure on places. There's no, there's a massive gap between the Lions and this, and the Lions aren't doing that well either. So where do they go from here? Are they going to are they going to make changes from inside the squad? And if so, what are they? Or are they going to look to outside the squad? Because if I was Dom Sibley, I'd be really annoyed at this point because I've scored a stack of runs in county cricket, yet I'm not even anywhere near any of the squads. There's about 18 questions in that ramble, so you can pick every one you want.
Yeah.
So have they backed themselves into a corner with the squad? Do you think that any changes will come inside the squad or outside the squad? And what do you think about Dom Sibley?
You're talking to a very simple man here, and you're giving me all that. So I've switched. I was looking outside at someone. Okay, right. Let's try and break it down. Batter wise, I think the only change there, and the biggest one under pressure, is Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Paulie has showed us a little bit of a glimpse, and he's actually he's got a level of form. He's got 50s, so Crawley's a tick. Duckett for me, I don't really. He hasn't got himself. He hasn't thrown away his wicket. He's been got out. And the one thing over there, it's been shown that how good he is on our wickets over here in terms of hitting the ball all the time. But in Australia,
he needs to lead.
that little bit of bounce. Okay, he hasn't been reckless with it, but it's just putting him under pressure. So he's got to adapt his game a bit. Pope for me looks skittish. And he's under pressure. And then but the rest of that top 7, yeah. So that's I think the only thing. And Bethell has got some runs for the Lions. Okay, so he's teaked off a slight, and he's been playing, and they like him. They really do like him. So that's one I think that will and should happen.
Is that a straight swap? Do you think Bethell for?
Yeah, I know you're
so that means
Jacks fan, and it's clearly.
I just think he's wasted at 8. I just think he's wasted at 8. I think, and going back to balance, I think that throws the balance out because then you're limiting the number of bowlers you can pick, and then you're relying on Ben Stokes being that 4th bowler, and he's not going to last 5 tests if that's the way we go.
No, but then it's. I get it what you're saying. I'll be honest, and it's a small snapshot. I'm not that keen on Will Jacks' bowling in Test match cricket. I looked at his angle of delivery, and when I think to the way that, for me as a keeper, being behind the stumps, James Treadwell, who I kept a lot to for Ken, watching Graham Swan, watching others right arm offies, that ability to drift the ball away and rag it back puts an element of danger, whereas Will Jacks is quite over the top, and a lot of his bowling was from out angling back. He beat the outside edge occasionally for one that didn't turn, but just this is just me looking at it and going from all the bowling I've kept to and I've seen from a right-hander. I wanted that bit, like Warney's drift did for so many. A right armer's drift is such a huge weapon. Why did Swanee do what he did to so many left-handers? Because he drifted the ball a lot.
He drifted it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
Treddy could do that, drift it and then rag it back. So it opened up both sides. I just looked at Will Jackson's bowling, and I can see why it works in one-day cricket so well, because one-day cricket bowling now is all about basically trying to hit the thigh pad, right? Let's restrict where they can do it. And he can do that brilliantly. My worry is, the art form of off-spin bowling, he probably hasn't quite got that yet. Yeah. And that's where Bashir is more of a traditional, that sort of. So that's my only. Listen, he did so well today with the bat. He showed some grit, to use a word that a good friend of mine, Rob Furley, loves, grit. So he showed a lot of that with Stokes today. He showed why he could well be in the team and maybe deserves to be given a run. And Bashir could be the unlucky man.
Is Joe Root's insistence on not batting at 3 actually a problem?
Mate, well, yeah, if it is, but I don't know how ballsy Joe is about that. I'm thinking if Stokes, he went to him and said, listen, Joe, this series so far, you've basically opened. We want to make these changes for the betterment. Okay. What do you reckon? Can you do 3? I reckon Joe Root would go, Stokes, absolutely. I've been in with this new ball. It's Australia. I've got the 100, what have you. You want me to do it, I'll do it.
See, because that helps with the balance, doesn't it? Then you're able to, you solve the 3 problem just for this series. Then you can play Jacks, Brooke and Stokes at 4, 5, 6. Jamie Smith, I think, he's no other keeper, but also I think he standing back, got no spinner that particularly is going to worry him. I think actually after the drops on the other day, he came back well the next day and took a couple of good catches. So he's fine. Then he got 8, 9, 10 Jack. So I let's assume that Wood's out and Atkinson is going to play. If it's Atkinson, Cast, Potts / Tongue. Actually, no, let's do that. Let's go with Atkinson, Cast or Tongue, Potts and Bashir. Bearing in mind that England has to win in Adelaide, because a draw is no good, right? Because Aussies retain the Ashes. Is that enough of a bowling attack to worry Australia? And actually, do they need worrying? Or is it a case of lulling him into a sense of false security and doing the outside off something, the line, and actually making them make mistakes? Or do we need that pace?
I think we need one pacer top. You want that. You want someone who can blast, make something out. I don't want the whole bowling unit bowling bumpers. Australia showed that. That's not the way to do it. I don't want them all bowling bumpers. What a waste. I want one person who you create an atmosphere with, who can do it well, who's targeted well, and then they get that wicket, they do their job, they're off. You then go back to normal cricket. You then go back to relentless, banging a spot outside, Michael Neser style. Okay? And that's, you create a moment, you grasp it, you get it, you then use that to then create pressure. If you need it happened again, bosh, off we go. And that's what we used to use Mark Wood for. But I actually think, I think that Bashir could be an unfortunate sort of player in this regard because of the way Will Jacks has played and because of that picking him for this Brisbane Test match and him batting the way he did. So I think Bashir could be, through no fault of his own, could find himself on the outside. I know that Stokes has said, he's our number 1. But with the mentality he's shown and after the Test match, I think everything's on the table. I think all that sort of stuff is going to change. So I think Jacks could, let's slide Root to 3, bring Jacks to 7, and then Stokes is going to be that. So then we're,
Stokes at 5, Smith's at 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
this is where our preparation is showing, because you've put us out there. We're just completely grasping here because we should be able to come in and go, this is the 11. But there is the beauty of what's happened today is it's opened up so much from what wasn't open before.
But that was the certainty going into it, was that the top 7 was as it was, and that was all solid, and it was going to get stacks of runs. And how do we rotate the bowlers around that 7 to give us a balanced side? Now, that's great on paper, and as you said, with the preparation that England has had, that's proven to be not a great strategy. Now, Bashir, Nathan Lyon and Cummins will come in for Australia. I mean, Michael Neser, very unfortunate. It's taken 5 forever. He's not going to play another test in the series unless someone goes down. So Nathan Lyon has taken more wickets in Adelaide than anywhere else. So is that not a case for England to pick a proper spinner, if you like? And they've only got one in the squad, so it has to be Shoaib Bashir.
No, I agree. And that's why I say he could be the unluckiest tourist on this trip. Because...
Well, so why do you mean what would you mean by unlucky if he plays at Adelaide? Or do you think he won't?
No, I don't. I think there's a strong chance that he may not, and they will look completely at the batting lineup. Will Jacks has shown an ability to bat a session. He's proved himself to a level at Test cricket with the bat, and that's been our fragility. And I think, I text you, isn't it? Is Bazball going to become block ball?
Yeah, exactly.
And Will Jacks has shown an ability to put a high value on his wicket. We know what he can do at one-day cricket. He's phenomenal. But he's also shown adaptability, and that was the other thing Ben Stokes spoke so highly of, the need to address. He's shown that he can adapt. And so they're now probably looking and going, actually, hang on. Ben Stokes is looking at every single one of his players in that dressing room closely in the eye. Are you good enough for me? Can you do what I want you to do?
Is your mentality good enough for me, I think?
Yeah.
Specifically. Yeah.
And Will Jacks has gone, Stokesy, you've seen me. Put me in.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by Bashir being unlucky, because he hasn't done anything wrong. He had, he came out as number 1.
Yeah.
And he could end up not playing a test. Yeah, another test.
Yeah. I think the people who weren't picked for this squad are probably smiling right now, because they're not in the firing line, and they've got a very good chance of playing the first test back at home in whenever it's going to be May or so, I think. Let's go true or false before we go to Neser. And is that the place for Ben Stokes to get some sort of control back over his team? You ready?
Yeah.
Now, you're 5-0 at the moment, so I'm not happy, as you know, with this 100%er. So I've gone obscure. I'm trying to get more and more obscure, because I've got to get one. You ready? Across the early century, second Ashes test, so that's the last century, so the 20th century, so the 1900s. Okay, day 4 was the only day when bowlers were officially allowed to use resin to dry the ball. True or false?
Day 4 was the only day.
Day 4 was mandated as the day where they could use resin to dry the ball. True or false?
Resin doesn't dry the ball, it makes it sticky. So, no, false.
Oh, no. Well, still 100%. Yeah, they used, and it wasn't, there was no mandated day, and they used sawdust and clothing to dry the ball. You can tell you're a school, tell you're a teacher. I mean, the kids are going to be proud of you with the logic that you've used, even though some of it's guesswork, to be able to get through.
Yeah.
And right, so by the time this is like you being Australia and me being England at the moment, isn't it? It's just like I'm getting hammered at my own game.
I should be off to Noosa for 9 days mini break. Go and enjoy the
exactly.
The Noosa's an unbelievable place. My family lives on the Sunshine Coast, which is where Noosa is, just a bit lower. And unfortunately, I did have to go over there recently because my dad passed away, and so, but I got the chance to go back there and visit them. And so Noosa's a little bit further north, and Noosa is, oh my gosh, what a place for a mini break. If Ben Stokes wants coffee shops, Noosa is all over it. Because Noosa's also renowned as the place where Victorians go to retire. So people from Melbourne go up to Noosa to retire because of the culture, the coffee culture. So it's a great place for England to be having a mini break. But it's gone from being somewhere they're hoping would have been golf, coffee, celebratory to now Noosa is going to be a hotspot of hostility for the next 5 days for those England boys.
Did you go on, was it your team? No, it was a bit later that went on that German SAS training camp thing.
That was Matt
later, wasn't
Pryor's
it?
team. That was the team that went on to win. Yeah, they sort of they got an Aussie SAS guy to do it.
SAS guy, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
I think it was the security guy, Reg, who
Reg
did do our security.
right.
Yeah. I think he organised it all. That sounded like an uncomfortable trip. So maybe
it did.
there's a little bit of few mountains in around the Noosa hinterland that way. So maybe they'll be doing a bit of walking up there and doing a bit of soul searching.
Did you play against Baz McCullum?
Yes. Yeah. I actually.
What was he like?
He was in his early Test matches. So New Zealand actually was more. Is it? Well, you should know this, mate. New Zealanders who
your test for it.
That's so. That was one of my early series. It was against New Zealand. I got 100
you
against
got 100
heading.
there, didn't you?
Yes, 100 in heading lead. That could have even been the break. That could have even been the moonwalking Test match. But yeah, Brendon McCullum was starting his keeping in there, and he didn't have a great keeping start to his career. Tough place to start, but yeah. So that's we did cross paths, and very early in his career, and he was brought in as a keeper.
And did you see enough of him or interact enough of him to get to know his personality at all?
No, not at that point. He didn't become the fierce leader he is today. At that point.
So what I'm trying to get to is Noosa. Noosa's become pivotal in this Ashes tour, from being messing about, as you say, playing golf and relaxing and drinking coffee. It's become a watershed. 5 days, 9 days, whatever, 5 days, because I think the next test is 9 days. And who will lead that? Well, I mean, again, I think as we sit here talking now, McCullum and Stokes are in a huddle, maybe with some other parts of the group, I don't know, Joe Root maybe, and they're formulating a plan for Noosa. Who do you think is going to lead that the enactment of that plan? Do you think Stokes can go, right, no, it's my team, I've got to be out there on the field with him, and I'm going to do what we need to do to get this done, and Baz is going to let him do it? Or do you think McCullum's going to have a role in that? Go with that, and I'll tell you why I think.
Yeah,
Stokes.
I agree with you, purely from listening to that interview, because he called it his team. I think McCullum has got them together to a level. That's why Keezy brought him in, because he wanted that unity with it, and he and Stokes are similar. But the passion that Ben Stokes and the clarity he spoke with after this Test match, I think he's going to want to get this team. What it'll need potentially is that voice of reason from outside of Stokes' emotion to go, yeah, get it, Ben. You want to go and you want to tear them apart. You want to tear up this dressing room. You want to look into their eyes. You want honesty. This is where the psyche may come into it. Okay, this is what you need to be aware of with your squad. Let's form a plan how you get what you want, but in a method that still unites your team and doesn't cause fractions and doesn't make people scared of their position, scared to perform the way you want. But let's get your answers, but let's do it in a smart way.
Is a bit of jeopardy not good though?
No, but I think they are. I think that jeopardy, that they're now, if any of them have listened to it, Stokes, I reckon he went in there, he would have lost his rocker. He would have given them what for and said, be prepared. So I think guys anyway were walking away going, Ollie Pope's going to be walking away going, oh my gosh, where do I sit? So I think they all will be looking, and I think potentially he would have dropped a little bit of information as to what to be ready for, just enough for each of them to think, what are we in for? What is my place under fire?
So the Baz McCullum thing for me, he sits there with his feet up on the railings quite a lot, giving a sort of relaxed. It comes across as I don't care, but clearly he cares. But it's that I understand it's probably giving a sense of calm, be relaxed, play your game, your natural game. But how much those players who have the talent to play for England can play, they're not one dimensional. They can play in different ways. Have they been told to play that way and now potentially going to be thrown under the bus?
I don't know if they've been told to play that way. I think they've just been given an opportunity to do it. I don't think Baz McCullum's not going down to to the bowlers and Harry Brook going, mate, I want you to run down and hit Starkey back over his head. He's not. I don't think he's been that directive. What he's fulfilled, and this is why he was brought in. What he's fulfilled them with is a sense of confidence to do that shot. What now is breaking down is the confidence in the thinking about when to do that shot. That's what's clearly broken down. He gave them a license, and almost with the trust that you'll make the right decision when to play it. And we've seen that to a level. Now that trust has slightly eroded because we're not seeing good, clear, regular decisions.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because if you look at what they said, McCullum and Stokes to the media straight after the match, McCullum said that he wouldn't change anything about the preparation. And in fact, if anything, for this match, had overtrained. And Stokes said, my dressing room isn't a place for weak men. Okay, it's starkly different. But where they did both agree was that the mentality wasn't good enough, which is what you're saying. You're saying actually the talent's there, you've got the license to play the shots, but your mentality and your decision-making process as to when to play the right shot, which Australia has constantly done very well, isn't there. So that's fine. So we agree on that. But then again, we go back to the squad selection. Actually, Dean, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Are they allowed to pick somebody from outside of their chosen squad for a series, outside of an injury?
I think so. I don't think it's like a World Cup football. I think you can do what you like, which is why Bethell, they're talking about Bethell bringing in and even the Roux brothers. So that's the whole point as well, why the Lions have travelled and basically been shadows. Because
okay, fine.
That's their point, to be able to draw them in. I don't think it's almost like there's your Ashes squad and that's all you can go with. I think it's just we take 15 to 16 just for logistics.
So the let's call it complacency. It might be a better word for it, that some of the England players have shown today, because they feel that there isn't the competition for places, actually isn't true, because not only are there players within that selected squad that could be chosen, there are other players in Australia who all could get flown over and dropped in at a drop of a hat. So actually there is the competition for places.
Yeah, and you've got someone, exactly. There are players around there, and Jordan Cox is one. Okay, let's go a little bit, add another name to it. He was there at the start, but then he had an agreement that he could leave and go to the IL-20s because it was so lucrative. He's been playing cricket. He's a phenomenal talent. He's arguably unlucky that he broke his fingers when because he would have been playing in New Zealand. Right. And when you look at, and Jordan Cox again is a phenomenal talent. Could he be someone left field who comes in and to bat at that number 3 position if Joe Root doesn't want to? That for me, between Bethell and Cox are the next cabs off the rank, I believe. It's just right. It's just whether or not they bring someone like that in.
You said in an earlier pod that Rob Key backs talent, and talent gets you in the room, as I said. But the mentality piece, is it only ever proven in a battle situation, if you like? Rob Key's going to get some flack, right? Because he's backed everyone today, and you said he picks talent. And you mentioned talent, Jordan Cox. there's no doubt that the Lions and the main squad, and other players, Dom Sibley, for example, have got immense amount of talent. How do you find out about mentality?
We have to, well, you do it from research on them in terms of watching them play in county cricket, watching them do that. So you have to have background on them. But the test match stage is another level up, and that's
and then the
until
Ashes
you
another
see
level
them,
up again.
until you actually, yeah. And I'd even put it to more. I've got a good friend of mine who's really quite negative at the moment, and questioning the intelligence of these players. And I sort of chuckle a bit and he's got a point but I'd put it as cricket intelligence. So I'm not going to talk about general intelligence. What's being questioned now is their cricket intelligence, and that's what wins you test match in the moment. How well can you remove yourself from that moment and use your cricket intelligence to apply to the situation? And that's probably, and I'd see that's what McCullum and Stokes are talking about as much as anything, that we're not seeing enough cricket intelligence.
I think the best thing that's happened on this Ashes tour is Stokes, especially coming out and saying what he said today. The arrogance seems to have gone. I know it's a phrase that he took objection to. Arrogance seems to have dropped. They seem to want to make changes. It's last chance saloon. And as I said at the very beginning, Ben Stokes or any leader, as you pointed out, doesn't want their legacy and captaincy to be judged by the non-efforts or the non-performance of others. So as a leader, this opportunity over the next 5 days and then the Adelaide test is to show everybody that England are adaptable, another phrase that's come out time and time again, and actually give it a go. Because a few things have happened. I think, with Trescothick coming out yesterday and saying what he did, I think it's just, on X, which is not a great barometer, I get that bit. There was some reasoned commentary on there. That people are just fed up. The public and the press are fed up of this England team for the way that they have approached everything. And actually, Stokes has come out without saying we've got it wrong, has come out and said, actually, we're going to make changes, which I think is what everybody wanted to hear after Perth.
Yeah. And I know I've got Tommy's rugby's kicked off, so I'm going to go. And I know we're talking about talking to Stewie Law tomorrow. I'll flip it over to Australia now. Is it right that Cummins comes back in? He hasn't played for months, so everything that us England fans were looking at our own team at, Australia's just had success. They're 2-0 up. And even Steve Smith said that, it's over to him. He's basically, I've done my job. I've won the two. But is it right that Pat Cummins walks straight back into this team with so little cricket under his belt, no cricket under his belt, when you've got a team that is working together and is working successfully? And also, has was that Travis Head opening in Perth, that little bit of brilliance? Okay, yeah, we've done that, we've won, but actually, Trav, the little glimpse we've had at Perth, at Brisbane, we think you're better at 5 the way you play. We're actually going to bring in someone else to open and you come in. So Australia's got a few questions as well, I think. So with Stewie on tomorrow, Stewie on tomorrow, let's, I think we can also flip it on there. Australia shouldn't just bring Cummins back. The unbelievable bowler he is, has he earned the right to walk straight back in just because of what he's done in the past?
Yeah, it's a good bit of controversy to end on. Nicely done.
Just a point,
you go off
not
and
trying
watch,
to be
Tommy.
controversial.
No, fair enough. Right, you go off and watch and Tommy play, and I'll chat to you tomorrow with a full test review. All right, mate. Later.